Alright folks, we're live here in Taiji, Japan. As you guys can see, the hunting boats are in formation. They've formed a line all together, and there's a pod of dolphins in front of them there. You might be able to see the splashes kind of right in the middle of the formation there. This appears to be quite a large pod. There's a lot of splashes down there. A lot of the dolphins are coming up and porpoising. Porpoising is when they kind of leap out of the air and move forward. There's less resistance in the air than there is water, so that is a faster way for them to travel. They're just fighting really hard to swim right now. Yeah, on Facebook you can pretty clearly see the pod there, and Twitter you guys can also see it pretty clearly. At this point we're still trying to get a species identification. We might go quiet every now and then. That's because we're taking photos and footage. It is quite hard with the glare to see the pattern on the dolphins, but this does appear to be a small species. Unfortunately, this hunt is completely legal in Japan. There's no federal or national law here protecting marine mammals, unlike other countries. This hunt is guarded by the Coast Guard as well as local authorities, police, town officials. There's really no way to interfere, unfortunately. The strongest thing we can do is document this and expose it to the world, especially to expose the connection to the captivity industry. The only thing keeping these hunts profitable is the sale of the live captured dolphins to marine parks and aquariums. A live dolphin sells for far, far more than a dead dolphin does. And the amount of manpower that goes into these hunts, this fleet of hunting boats and all the crew that's on them, the fuel, the hours that are worked, just all these costs. The only way to keep it profitable is by selling live dolphins to aquariums and marine parks. And you guys, I think you can still pretty clearly see the splashes and the dolphins porpoising. Hunting boats typically push them really close to shore, and to the right side of your screen is the Taiji harbor. They'll push those dolphins right up to the mouth of the harbor and then use the coastline as a wall and kind of push the dolphins along the coast to the Cove, which is over behind us, towards the left side of your screen. And the hunting boats are they're still in formation. They're about to go behind some of the foliage that we have here. We'll do the best we can to keep you guys on a good visual. At this point, folks, we're still trying to get an ID on the species. We have an idea of what it might be, but we want to be 100% sure before we announce it. There are some skiffs that have joined the hunting fleet. There's one passing below us underneath the foliage as well. They've got a net on board and they're headed right for the cove. Like the dolphins have gone down for a dive. The hunting boats are just kind of idling, waiting for them to come back up. There are 9 species on Taiji's drive hunt quota, and as far as we know, members of all 9 species have been captured for the captivity trade. For those of you that have just joined us, we're live with the hunting fleet from Taiji Harbor. They have spotted a pod of dolphins and they've driven them really close to shore. The hunting boats, it looked like the dolphins had gone on a dive and the hunting boats were waiting for them to come back up. At this point, they're right outside the harbor. They typically drive the dolphins there and then along the coastline into the cove. So they still have a little bit of a ways to go. Until they get to the cove, there's some foliage and they may be going in and out of visibility. But we'll try to keep you guys on the best visual that we can. We've got you guys live on Facebook and Twitter. And many of you probably joined us for our live stream yesterday and saw the footage and photos that came out of the drive yesterday, which was just horrific. And that's exactly why we're here. That's exactly why we're here, to document and expose this to the world. To expose the reality of what goes on here and the connection to the captivity trade. There are just so many inhumane and cruel aspects to this hunt. There's a lot of sustainability concerns from a conservation standpoint as well. And please continue to share this live stream and take action by going to the link that's in the description. There's a list of steps that you can take, and there's a whole list of authorities to contact as well. Members of the Japanese government, your local Japanese consulate or embassy. There's so many people we can continually contact and send letters and emails to, demanding an end to these hunts. They're very cruel, they're inhumane, and they're unnecessary. These dolphins have been down for a while. A lot of the time we get a question why we don't interfere directly with these hunts. There's several reasons why. For one, these hunts are completely legal within Japan. They're closely monitored by local authorities, including the Coast Guard, the police, city officials here. Police follow our Cove monitor team everywhere we go when we're in town here in Taiji. Any interference would likely result in arrest or deportation, and that could potentially affect our ability to document and expose this to the world. Dolphin Project is the only organization that's been consistently monitoring these hunts since 2003. If we weren't here, this would go on unchecked. The hunters would continue what they're doing with no one here to monitor it, no one here to expose it, no one here to collect the data on what's actually caught and captured. And thanks to our continuous efforts throughout the years here, several countries have moved to ban captivity or to ban the import of Taiji dolphins. A couple years ago, South Korea banned the import of Taiji dolphins. Just last year, Canada passed a historic anti-captivity law. That's just setting a huge example for the rest of the world. Seems like the hunters have located the pod of dolphins again. There's some movements happening. And again, at this spot, they're going to kind of go in and out of visibility with all the leaves and branches growing. If they continue their path towards the cove, we will get a better view on them. So please bear with us for a little bit here. In fact, I'm going to see if I can get you guys higher to see what's going on here. Watch out, I'm going to go on there. There we go, we can see a little bit from up higher here. Right now, a lot of the boats are right in the glare that's behind the bush here. You guys on Facebook and Instagram, Facebook and Twitter can see that one banger boat that's kind of there. It looks like the dolphins dove again. They're fighting hard to find a way to escape from these guys. Boats are starting to move. A lot of the activity right now is just right in the glare. There's a huge glare behind the bush there. And even when we look through our cameras, it's quite hard to see what's going on. But it seems like the hunters are struggling to get a handle on the pod at this point. They dove down for quite a while. And it seems like they're on another dive. We're hearing some banging from where we are. The larger boats in this fleet have poles on the sides of their boats, and when they find a pod of dolphin, they put those poles in the water and start to hit them with a hammer. And the sound that it creates underwater is very, very loud. And the whole fleet of boats in a line together, creating that sound, just creates a wall, an acoustic wall essentially, that forces the dolphins in the direction that they want them to go. Dolphins, all toothed whales, are very sensitive to sound. They have a biological sonar system called echolocation. They're also highly intelligent. They use their own languages, essentially, of clicks and whistles to communicate with one another. These are sentient, self-aware, and very intelligent animals. These dolphins came in from quite far offshore. They've been chased and terrorized for miles now to get to this point. It's very likely that they're exhausted and tired and confused, which unfortunately works to the hunter's advantage. There are some skiffs down there as well. From your viewpoint, it's probably just behind the bushes. They're kind of coming into the direction where they'll come into view. There we go. The men on those skiffs have some sort of metal object that's tied to a line. They'll continually throw that metal object into the water and then pull it back on that line. And the splash or the sound of that heavy metal object going into the water also creates some sound. So that, in combination with the larger boats banging on the poles, just creates that acoustic wall that they're using to drive the dolphins to the cove right now. Yeah, we can kind of see some splashes. I think Facebook, you guys can probably see it between the branches there. And Twitter, you guys as well. The dolphins have come back to the surface. I'm gonna move you guys down again. Okay. Please bear with us on the visual. We've got some branches blocking again. It appears they are heading towards this direction. Yeah, it looks like they've got a better handle on the pod right now and they're moving along. These dolphins are kind of going in different directions, looking for a way to get away. At this point, it looks like we can make a species identification. This is a pod of Pantropical spotted dolphins. This pod is just super tightly together. There you go, guys. That's a better view. They have captured Pantropical spotted dolphins in the past. We'll await to see what happens. This looks like a pretty sizable pod. And you guys can just see how much harassment goes into this drive process, how much those skiffs are revving their engines and the larger boats are banging on the poles. I'm pretty sure you guys can hear it because it's quite loud from where we're standing. This pod is trying to find a direction it can go to get away. Sometimes they're turning inwards towards us, sometimes they're turning to the right, sometimes to the left. Please continue to share this live stream, folks. We can very clearly see how much these dolphins are being harassed and terrorized. This whole process of using the wall of sound and all the acoustic weapons, essentially, to herd these dolphins in is incredibly inhumane. It's incredibly distressing. Oh, they're starting to put a net up down here. One of the skiffs has started to put a net out. If you guys can see towards the bottom of your screen. Yeah, it seems like they're using that net to kind of push them into the cove. We're gonna move to another vantage point, guys. I'm gonna zoom you out so there's less shaking as we move. As you can see, they've successfully kind of trapped them in here. Those dolphins are just super tight together. You guys can both see on Facebook and Twitter. Please continue to share this, folks. I mean, the behavior of these dolphins is suggests that they're very, very stressed, exhausted. Some of them are floating with their heads up out of the water. There's a lot of spy hawks and hef popping up down there. Alright, we're going to move you guys once more over to our ladder that has a better view above the cove. Please bear with us for a little bit. There we go. Again, we've got Facebook and Twitter live right now. It's a little bit hard to keep both of you guys in frame. I might have to keep you zoomed out a little bit. You can see some big splashes down there. Alright, they're beginning to draw another net to trap the dolphins closer to the cove. We're seeing at least one cow-calf pair, one mother and baby pair, possibly more in this pod. These dolphins are just so tightly huddled together. skiff kind of pushing in a couple that had separated from the pod. Dolphins are part of the toothed whale family. All toothed whales are very, very social. They live in groups called pods where they're bonded to other members, other family members oftentimes. Yeah, there's several of them just kind of floating with their heads up out of the water. These dolphins are just swimming around like they're panicked. For those of you that have joined us recently, this is a pod of pantropical spotted dolphins. In the past week and a half or so, since the hunters started going out after their winter New Year's break, this is already the fourth species that they've gotten. They've gotten striped dolphins, rhesus dolphins, bottlenose dolphins, and now pantropical spotted dolphins. This suggests that the current is very close to shore right now. There's what's called the black current or the Kuroshio current that goes along the coastline in this part of Japan. And many dolphin species follow that current and the nutrients it carries. There's just so much spy hopping, so many heads coming up out of the water down there. They're just trying to look around and figure out what's happening to them. There's a skiff coming down closer to the cove here. There's some engine noise outside of view here as well. It sounds like there's some more skiffs approaching and they're getting ready to either slaughter or take captives. We'll wait to see what happens. These dolphins are chased and harassed for hours many times before they make it into the cove here. There's just absolutely nothing about this drive hunt process that's humane. Right now there's no skiffs in view. We're kind of waiting to see whether or not trainers arrive. If the trainers arrive, it's usually indicating that there's going to be a captive selection process where they will assess and look at which dolphins they find most physically attractive and most well-mannered, in their opinion, to train and to put in a tank or a sea pen and exploit for profit. The only thing keeping Taiji's drive hunts profitable is the connection to the captivity industry. A live dolphin sold to a marine park or an aquarium sells for far, far more than a dead dolphin does for meat. We have records of a single dolphin selling for 6 figures in US dollars. Right now, much of the demand for these dolphins is international. Many facilities within Japan are banned from purchasing these dolphins. If you go to our website, dolphinproject.com, and click on the Taiji campaign, there's an FAQ page, and within that page we have a list of facilities that we have documentation of purchasing dolphins from Taiji. Captivity itself is incredibly inhumane for intelligent species like dolphins, particularly a marine species. Dolphins are highly intelligent, highly social, sentient, self-aware, wide-ranging, and deep diving. There's simply no way to provide all of their physical, mental, and emotional needs in an artificial setting. You guys can just see how distressed they are, how tightly they're huddled, and the splashing. We've spotted at least one mother and baby pair in this pod. Research has shown that dolphins have a signature whistle that mothers assign to their babies. The signature whistle is used in the same way that we have names for each other. Sounds like they're starting to draw the tarps on the beach down below us. Those tarps are put up in an effort to hide what they do down there, which would be the captive selection process as well as slaughters. Please continue to share these live streams. Retweet it if you're on Twitter and share if you're on Facebook. The more eyes we can get on this, the better. Taiji's drive hunts are ultimately tied to captivity, which is a global issue. And the more we can expose the cruelty that's associated with it, the more we change the tide on how the world sees dolphin captivity. The Japanese government's, the Wakayama Prefecture official website has released a page or a document with a list of things to defend this practice. However, they fail to mention the captivity aspect. They fail to mention how dolphins caught in these drive hunts are sold overseas to marine parks and aquariums. They've also claimed that the methods used in this hunt have been altered to be more humane. Those of you that saw the footage and photos we got yesterday can see clear evidence that these hunts are in no way humane. So many heads bobbing out of the water. This pod has been driven in and terrorized for several hours now. They came from quite far offshore. It's very likely that they're exhausted and tired and confused. The process of chasing or harassing dolphins by boat, let alone banging on poles underwater to terrorize them, would be illegal in several countries. Many countries have recognized how intelligent and sentient these animals are, as well as their value to the marine ecosystem. Cetaceans or dolphins and whales are very slow to reproduce. Hunting them on a commercial scale is not sustainable in the long run. There was a time in the US even where we hunted whales and captured dolphins for captivity. We captured them off the California coast, off of Florida and several other places. But in 1972, the Marine Mammal Protection Act was put into place, preventing such captures and preventing any harassment or hunting of these animals. India has also recognized dolphins as non-human persons with their own specific set of rights. In 2019, Canada passed the historic anti-captivity law, which will save countless generations of whales and dolphins from lifetimes of exploitation. Europe, the UK has essentially made it impossible to open a dolphinarium. And yes, to answer a question that just came in on Facebook, yes, it is illegal to hunt whales and dolphins in the US, in the US coast, in the surrounding waters. Decades ago, in the 1800s and the early 1900s, many communities in the US did hunt whales when whaling was really big, to hunt whales for their blubber. Communities in Dana Point and Monterey Bay were big whaling hubs, but now they have transformed to be huge hubs of ecotourism. Thankfully, whale and dolphin populations have recovered from exploitation from hunting and capturing, and now sustain a responsible ecotourism industry where people can come and see dolphins and whales in their natural habitat and on their own terms. It is important to acknowledge a history or a heritage of whaling, but in this day and time, there's no viable reason why it needs to continue. And again, the only thing keeping Taiji's drive hunts, this dolphin hunt that we're looking at now, the only thing that keeps these profitable is the captivity aspect, is the sale of the dolphins that are captured here to marine parks and aquariums all over the world. There's no need to put these dolphins in tanks for people to pay and come look at. That's just plain exploitation. These dolphins are kind of all in a line right now, swimming by the edge of the net. And a lot of the time we do get the question of why the dolphins don't jump over these nets that they put in place here. And there's several reasons why. For one, many of these dolphins come from miles and miles offshore. By the time they get here, they're completely exhausted and confused and disoriented. Many of these are offshore species that never get this close to the coastline. The only borders they know are the ocean's surface, the ocean's floor, and rocks or other things along the coast. A net is a foreign object to them. Therefore, many of the times they stay away from it. And once they're pushed this far to a foreign environment, so close to the beach here, they don't know what lies on the other side of the net. To them, a jump over the net may be a jump into danger. Additionally, dolphins are very social animals. They're very bonded to the other individuals that live in their group or pod. Many of the times these pods are made up of family members, such as mothers and calves and siblings. Dolphins stay together. It's very unlikely for them to separate from their pod. There is at least one skiff down below us, and there's a couple hunters there that just pulled the tarps a few minutes ago. We're awaiting to see if trainers arrive, and in turn we're awaiting to see whether there will be a captive selection process or a slaughter. Please stay with us as long as you can. Please continue to share and expose this. The more people we can make aware of what happens here, and the more people we can move to action, the better of a chance we have to making progress. Okay. Again, guys, we're live on both Facebook and Twitter, and we're trying to keep both of you guys in frame. And for those of you that have recently joined us, this is a pod of Pantropical spotted dolphins, and this appears to be the first drive this season of this species. The tarps have been drawn on the beach below us, which indicates that the hunters are getting ready to do something. We're waiting to see if the trainers arrive or if the other hunters arrive. Alright folks, we just took a look over at another lookout point and it doesn't look like any skiffs are coming out at the moment. We're going to go ahead and cut the live stream once here, and then we will go live again once the hunters or trainers arrive. Please make sure your notifications are on Facebook for when we go back live. And Twitter, please stand by for our next live stream. Thank you guys for joining us. Please stay tuned. Alright folks, we just took a look over at another lookout point and it doesn't look like any skiffs are coming out at the moment. We're going to go ahead and cut the live stream once here, and then we will go live again once the hunters or trainers arrive. Please make sure your notifications are on Facebook for when we go back live. And Twitter, please stand by for our next live stream. Thank you guys for joining us. Please stay tuned.